Somebody left me a 1-star review on one of my books. I have to admit I was slightly outraged because the comment was not justified.
I only have control over my thoughts and my feelings about this.
That we have to somehow take the sorrow, and then it goes thoughts, feelings, emotions, and then physical changes in our body, and then we feel bad, right?
And so if you carry any baggage, good or bad, right? If you're thinking, oh, someone praised me, I'm so happy, then if someone gives you a bad review, then you will be unhappy.
Welcome to the podcast. Today we are diving into how to not get upset. How to not get upset, how to not take sorrow from others and from life, and also how not to give sorrow. How to not take sorrow, how to not give sorrow, how to not get upset. This is a wonderful art. This is the secret art of not getting disturbed. So, Shireen, why is it beneficial not to get upset? Surely getting upset is the natural way of things. Why should someone not want to not get upset? What's the point of that?
I was thinking about human life. You know, every living being has a soul, right? There's a soul, let's say there is an earthworm. The earthworm decision to move from here to here, right? Why is it moving? Because there's a soul in it, and the soul decides to move from here to here. Right? It's not as apparent as a human decision, but it is, some life form is there, and that's where life force is there, that's where it's moving, and there's a soul. And then there are, let's say, dolphins and octopuses and peacocks and birds and all kinds of living creatures, and each one has a soul. And then there's the human soul. And in our understanding is a human soul will always take on a human body, right? So we are not going to come as earthworms and frogs and stuff. And so the difference between, let's say, even a dolphin or an octopus and us is that we can see ourselves as spiritual beings. We can recognize who we are beyond our real identity, beyond just the physical body. We can understand a higher power. We can understand the mysteries of the universe. We can understand all of these things. So it's a very different kind of a soul versus a like animal soul. Let's say a cat soul or something like that, right? It's a very different kind. Like cats don't even know that we are different from them. Forget about them thinking that they are a soul versus, you know, there's a soul and then the cat is a body and all of those things, right? It's the body of a cat, I'm just a soul. And so the value of a soul, inherently we all understand that each soul has a different value. Because the value of a soul, for let's say an earthworm soul, for an earthworm the value is not much at all. No one's going to come after you if you kill an earthworm, right? But let's say you kill a human being, then there are laws to protect human beings, because inherently we all know a human soul, a human life is very, very valuable. It's a very valuable life. And so when we don't understand the value of our own life and we waste it by taking sorrow, by being upset, by giving sorrow, by doing all of these things, we are just wasting a very valuable life.
All right, so being upset, taking sorrow.
That's a really long-winded answer.
Well, it's taken us through the whole earthworms, through the cats and the dolphins and the rabbits and everything else. So our life is very valuable, so why would we want to spend it getting upset about random stuff? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So let's say something happens. It could be a person says something nasty, or something doesn't work out the way you want it to, or you get sick. How can we not get disturbed and take sorrow when sorrow is coming to us from outside?
It's a decision. Taking sorrow, let's say there's trash, right? This is what 𝗦𝗘𝗡𝗦𝗘 used to say. So, in our neighborhoods, we put the trash out, right? So my neighbors have put their trash out. And instead of putting the trash out for the trash person to come and pick up, if my neighbor decides to give me the trash and put it in my yard and give it, say, oh, this is your trash, not my trash, will we take it? No, we won't take it. We'll have a hue and cry and say, no, this is your trash, take care of it. Why are you giving me your trash, right? So in the same way, if people are giving us sorrow, or if circumstances are giving us sorrow, because our life is so valuable, we need not take it. And that decision is mine. So you actually have a choice. What we are not realizing is that there is a choice. We think there is no choice, and we automatically gravitate towards taking sorrow. But we have a choice of not taking sorrow. And we have to exercise this choice of not taking sorrow. So the first thing to understand is there is a choice, and I can choose not taking sorrow.
Yeah. Normally, the attitude is there's no choice, and it happens automatically, isn't it? As you were speaking about this...
Right, just like physical things, I'm making choices, right? Even this is I make a choice.
Yeah, I've been to places like when you go to remote places physically, away from the town. Like there's lots of trails and stuff around here and in Hawaii, and I've often noticed these signs. They say no dumping because they know that no one's around, so people could go there and just chuck their trash into the nature, and it says no dumping. We need to have a sign like that we've in ourselves, like we're not accepting dumping, because there's even the expression, isn't there, like when someone's dumping on another person, they're just going on and on and on about all their nonsense, and just like so let's say, for example, that somebody comes up to me, right, and they're going on and on and on, and they don't like this and that, blah blah, and rah 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 rah. How am I not to take sorrow from them criticizing me and giving me a hard time and going on and
on? They can do whatever they want. They can say, we don't have control over what they do, right? But there are two things that we have control over. One is that we don't get into too much thinking about them. What they're doing, why they're doing, right? That, too much thinking about the other person or the other situation. And the other is too much thinking that I can fix them or they should behave a certain way, which is like a expectation, but it's a different kind of expectation. That, okay, let's say I'm driving on the road and the drivers in Florida are horrible, and they are driving really bad, right? And I'm getting all worked up, they should behave this way, why can't people drive this way? Because there is a subtle expectation, and sometimes it's not so subtle, expectation that people should behave a certain way. But I don't have control over that. And so those two things, right? If they're doing something, not to have too much thinking about it, and even if they are doing something, after not having too much thinking about it, not having an expectation that they change their behavior. If someone has decided to come and give me sorrow, right? Someone has decided to come here every day, come and say, hey, Shireen, you're a moron, right? I'm okay, I'm tolerant the first day, second day, maybe after 6 months I'm like, oh, I need to do something, this person needs to change his behavior, why is he coming, why is he doing this, why shouldn't this happen? So what I have come to is, okay, so it's happening repeatedly, and now there's an expectation this person should change their behavior. And so my thoughts are going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I have an expectation that they have to change their behavior. And so if I understand that under no circumstances, absolutely no circumstances, do I have control over this person's behavior? I only have control over my thoughts and my feelings about this. And I have a choice not to take it if I have that understanding. Because there is self-transformation like that, then the other person will transform. But if I keep having an expectation, keep thinking, oh, this one will change, this will happen, that will happen, then it's like a vicious cycle. I'm perpetuating a vicious cycle. I'm taking sorrow and they keep giving sorrow. I keep taking sorrow, they keep giving sorrow. It's a cycle. The cycle breaks only if I stop taking sorrow.
It's very strange dynamics, isn't it?
Because people are going to stop. People are not going to stop giving sorrow. Absolutely, I have to break the cycle of taking sorrow.
So taking sorrow isn't. It's someone is going to say whatever they want, right? We don't have to create the changes in our consciousness around that, because that's what taking sorrow is. Like, I'm thinking about somebody left me a 1-star review in one of my books, right? And I have to admit I was slightly outraged, because the comment was not outright outraged, but the comment was not justified based on what it, because like some people, they don't understand what it is, right? But anyway, I didn't like it. I'm like, what the hell is it? So but I noticed as that happened, right, that it doesn't happen very much. That's why it stands out. I thought it's unjust to receive a false statement like this from some random person who hasn't understood something. But then again, they have every right to say whatever they want, don't they? And I don't have to allow what someone says to poison myself. Because when I think about taking sorrow, right, I'm the one who is creating the thoughts, I'm the one who's creating the feelings, and I'm the one who's having chemical reactions in my body as a result of my thoughts and feelings that make me feel bad.
There's something else subtly going on also.
Expecting it should be different than it is. Ego.
No, because you put it up thinking everyone is
Everyone
going to like it.
It's the best ever. What are you talking about? I'm just joking.
So, because there's an expectation, right? Oh, I'm going to get a lot of praise for this
I didn't
book.
expect anything, but I didn't expect negative reviews. That's so surprising. But it's true. And I had unconscious expectation that people would appreciate it. And
right. And actually, people do appreciate it. One person not appreciating it doesn't make it like the 100 other people who appreciated it.
This is common for authors and creators, is that you might have like 1,000 good comments and one bad comment, and then one bad comment is what they focus on. So the expectation is unreasonable to begin with, and then the actual process of taking sorrow is unnecessary. It doesn't have to be like click, 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 and then sorrow, right? Because if you break this down as a sequence, something happens, someone says something, in between them saying it, that we have to somehow take the sorrow, and then it goes thoughts, feelings, emotions, and then physical changes in our body, and then we feel bad, right? And it can happen very, very quickly. How do you not take the sorrow that leads to that chain reaction in that moment?
I'd have to learn this is, okay, in that moment it's too late, right? You have to practice beforehand. If you've come to the moment and I'm thinking, how do I not take sorrow? It's a little too late. And so that's where meditation comes into the picture, really. Meditation, understanding, wisdom, all of these come into the picture. So to begin with, every day, if you practice stabilizing yourself in your real identity as a spiritual being, and what happens is when you, and also understanding that there's benefit in everything, in the universe, the drama, the cosmic play, and also in connecting with a higher power. So we called it the 3 dots, right? The dot of I am a soul, the dot of the Supreme Soul, and the dot of the drama, just to put a full stop. So what happens is then I learn to put a full stop faster. I don't know if there is any other method to not take sorrow except to learn to put a period. To remember I am a soul, to remember the Supreme Soul, and learn to put a period. There is no other method. Otherwise, even if you allow one thought to come in, right, that thought will bring many other thoughts in. And so in any situation, in any interaction, in anything, right, the how good you are as a spiritual person, your spiritual practice, how good it is decided by how soon you can go in and out of a situation without carrying the baggage of it. And so if you carry any baggage, good or bad, right? If you're thinking, oh, someone praised me, I'm so happy, then if someone gives you a bad review, then you will be unhappy. So you have to learn to put a full stop. You have to learn to become neutral. You have to learn to put a full stop, and you have to come out of any thinking, excessive thinking, way before, like in the morning, not at the time off.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It reminds me of something I was reading the other day that said, I'm paraphrasing it, when we are aware we're spiritual beings, in that consciousness, the negative feeling state doesn't exist. Right? This really stood out to me because that's kind of what we're talking about. That when we are in that state, so if I was in that state and I looked at this 1-star review, in that state, I would say that's quite funny. Right? Like it doesn't mean anything to me. If I'm not in that state, then I'll get upset. So that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it? If you practice these things in advance, then when they end up happening at that moment, because you're in a different state of consciousness, it doesn't bother you.
Then you're able to put a period, a full stop. The most important practice we can do in life is to put a period to our thoughts. Don't stretch it out. Something has happened, we have to let it go in that moment.
Let it go in the moment and let it go before the moment as well.
You know, people say, oh, how do you win arguments? How do you... No, that's not important.
No, being right is guaranteed.
It doesn't matter. You don't need to win an argument. You don't need to be right. You don't need to win an argument. You don't need to be wrong. You don't need to be anything. You need to put a full stop. You need to put a period.
Yeah, and in order to do that, we have to understand that there's benefit in the drama, in the great game. You know, so there's I'm a point of light, God is a point, and the drama, seen from a distance, is a point, isn't it? The whole thing. It's like a dot.
Absolutely. One thing I understood before we even get into not taking sorrow, one thing I understood is that if I take sorrow, inevitably I will give sorrow. So if you are thinking, oh, woe is me, I'm just receiving all this sorrow, I'm just, it's just being dumped on me. No, if you're taking sorrow, that means you're also giving sorrow. Somewhere you're giving sorrow. There's no way that you're not giving sorrow. So the cycle of taking sorrow, giving sorrow, right? It has to stop at taking sorrow. So there are two cycles. Is I am taking, someone else is giving, right? And then I am taking and I am giving. That is also one cycle, right? In both cycles, someone else is giving and I'm taking, and I'm giving and I'm taking. In both and someone else is taking. In both cycles, right? I have to be the one to break the cycle. If I don't break the cycle, it never breaks. And so I have to break the cycle. And to be able to break the cycle, the most important is, of course, staying in your spiritual consciousness, putting a full period, and all of those things. But also to take some quality of yours, right? Like peace, let's say. Peace is very important. Some quality that is inherent to the soul, and to keep experiencing that inherent quality of the soul. You keep experiencing it. Because what happens is the mind is the container that takes sorrow, whatever, right? It's doing all of that. Now you're not taking sorrow, but it can't be empty. If it's empty, then again you'll start taking sorrow. And so for it to be full, you have to fill it with something higher, like peace and love and experiences like that. And the most important experience, I feel, for this is not getting upset. The most important experience is peace. And so to really stabilize in our original nature as peaceful souls, and that will help not taking sorrow.
So we're filling up with good vibrations of peace and light, so that we feel like a spiritual power around us, inside of us, which then stops the addiction to the suffering, to taking the sorrow. I remember I had a website. I was writing a book about this a long time ago. It's called Addiction to Suffering. It's one of my endless unfinished books that you know about.
It's not the book you got 1-star rating?
No, because that probably would have got 5-star ratings, because people know they're addicted to sorrow. But some people wouldn't like it, so yeah, you probably got 1 star for that as well. But it was actually a great book. I actually found it recently and I was reading it, but it reminded me when you were talking about this taking sorrow, because I bought a website called 𝗦𝗘𝗡𝗦𝗘.com, and I decided to not renew it. I was renewing it every year because I was still thinking of using it for something. And I said, I don't need this website. Why do I need this, right? So I stopped it, and at the beginning of the year, I got a message that says, Addiction to Sorrow has been cancelled. And it just symbolically was such a fascinating thing to see, because it's like energetically, we can decide to give up getting upset. Do you know what I mean? And it's like we can cancel it within ourselves. And there's literally because I was thinking a lot about this, it's a literal chemical addiction to suffering, to taking sorrow. It's not like, I'm just taking it, I'm taking it. They've done studies with people who are addicted to watching the news, and they've wired them up and tested them. And when we see sorrowful things in whatever way, right, it creates a certain chemical reaction in our body, which we get dependent on because we're used to it. It's like a state of our physiology. And then if we don't get it, then we feel kind of unbalanced because it's not normal, even though it's unpleasant. And then getting that hit of sorrow just kind of like gives that little kick. So it's an actual addiction to sorrow that we're dealing with, right? And when you think of it that way, it adds another element to this whole situation, that we don't know what it's like initially to live without sorrow, because we're so used to it and it's been going on for such a long time. I sometimes find myself feeling so good that I don't know what to do with myself. actually. And it's like unusually, like, I was driving the car the other day and I'm like, I just feel so good, it's just the best, right? And because we're coming out of like a life of suffering on weird levels, not necessarily physically, but just mentally thinking negative thoughts, getting caught up in stuff. And so...
But even physically, physically not in bondage, like we're not slaves or something, but physical changes make a difference in the mental makeup.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even like eating differently or getting enough sleep or whatever, it changes the chemistry, doesn't it, of the body and the mind, the way we feel. So this taking sorrow, we can say, oh, I'm a victim, people are just giving me it, but another way of looking at it is that we're actually chemically addicted to sorrow, and if we don't get it, we want it. And that's a different way of thinking about it. Of course, someone who is being taken like abuse and they're trapped in a situation probably doesn't apply in that situation because they actually are stuck in something. But if we're not, and we're actively seeking something out, it's almost like once the happiness level gets too high, it kicks in and brings it back to the usual level.
There's desires, right? Desires. I've been thinking about desires a lot. Is what do we want? You were talking about wanting. What do we want? And whatever we want, the object of my desire decides how I'm going to feel. If I'm going to feel sorrow or if I'm going to feel happy, the object of my desire. So let's say, that's why in the Brahmakumaris we say you can have pure desires, right? Because this is why. So let's say I have a desire for money. And I have a desire, say, oh, I want to make $1 million in the next month, whatever desire for money, right? And what's going to happen is, because of my desire for money, somehow I'll feel pinched. I'll feel, some kind of scarcity. I'll feel the anxiety, all of that, right? Of making that money, all of that. It's the stress, because the object is money. And now let's say the object of my desire is I want to give good wishes and pure feelings to everyone, which is very important in not taking sorrow, is you have to give them something, is giving good wishes and pure feelings. Because my desire is to give good wishes and pure feelings, then there will be a sense of connection, a sense of belonging, a sense of fulfillment. It's very different because my desire is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are taking sorrow, then we have to look at our desires. What are our desires? Because our desires are deciding our sorrow.
Do you mean because if you don't get what you want, then you're unhappy?
Even if I do get it, right? For example, let's say if I desire fame, and I do get fame, then I'm afraid, it'll go away. I'm afraid, there's a certain amount of desperation, there's a certain amount of fear. There's all of that happening. Is if my desire is not like a pure desire, if my desire is not good wishes and pure feelings, if my desire is not let everyone benefit, all of those things, right? If my desires are not those things, then these impure desires, we'll call them impure desires because they bring you a lot of sorrow, those desires. Those impure desires, even if you get the desire, you have fear of losing it. So before you get it, there is sorrow. While you're getting it, there is sorrow, and after you get it, there is sorrow.
Doesn't sound very good, does it?
Taking and giving sorrow, right, not getting upset, is a very deep thing. It doesn't go away that easily. The habit of the addiction to taking sorrow, it doesn't go away that easily. Another thing that is very important to look at is our ego. Interestingly, Buddha said desire is the root cause of all suffering. And now I understand, actually. Before I used to be like, what? Why did you say that? But now I understand, really desire is the root cause of all suffering. But impure desires, right? Not pure desires. But I feel even more than desire, right? 𝗦𝗘𝗡𝗦𝗘, he had a senior brother, elder brother, who since passed away. And he used to say, ego is the root cause of all sorrow. Ego is the root cause of all sorrow. So if I'm experiencing sorrow, I just have to see what aspect of ego is coming up.
Or desire.
Or
because
desire,
these people
yeah.
shouldn't be giving me
Where are
one-star
my
reviews,
desires,
obviously. Because that's the ego, isn't it? You know, I'm just... I mean, it
Right,
is.
that
It's like, oh, how dare you, you know, that's the ego, you know. Yeah, desire... So if we expect... And desire is another way of saying expectation, isn't it? Wanting something that you don't have, expecting it. Why isn't it here yet? It's funny how the modern world is so, like, toxic, really, if you think about it. Because it's all about desires and, like, how you look and, like, getting stuff and getting... And no wonder people are so depressed, anxious, stressed out, you know, on various things to try and manage their... Because that's promoted again and again and again. You know, get. You should desire things. So if we're in our self-respect, our higher consciousness, we're aware we're spiritual beings. We have pure desires to give and not to. That we don't need anything. Then, if someone says something, we won't get upset about it because.
Yeah. And we have to keep giving. If you don't give, then we take. We have to keep giving good wishes. We have to keep giving blessings and have pure feelings for people. Otherwise, we will take. That's another spiritual law, right? The soul is either in taking mode or giving mode. If you're not giving, then you're taking. And the world is full of sorrow, and that's all they'll give it to you because that's what they have. They're not going to give you something they don't have. Because they have sorrow, they'll give you sorrow. And so if you're taking sorrow, then we are not able to give. And so if we don't want to take sorrow, then we have to learn to give good wishes and pure feelings and blessings.
That's very interesting. Giving... We come across this term quite frequently, don't we? Give good wishes and pure feelings. It does seem to be like a cure-all type of medicine, isn't it?
Right.
It's like you got a problem with sorrow, give good wishes and pure feelings. Having negative thoughts, good wishes and pure feelings. Can't practice anything else, good wishes and pure feelings. So it's where we're actively sending out good energy. And another thing related to this, not taking sorrow, is to recognize that the only reason somebody would give you sorrow is because they're under a negative influence from outside. Because this is very important, right? People are fundamentally good, but there are negative external influences. And once those influences get inside of them, that's why someone says something nasty, or they do something bad, or they hurt somebody, or whatever it is, right? So it's really helpful to realize that they're not bad, and they're not trying to cause you sorrow, even if it looks like they are, and even if they're actively trying to cause you sorrow, they're not really trying to. It's the negative energy that's got in. It's like a parasite or a virus. That negativity's got stuck in there. And as a result of that poisonous program, they're now doing stuff like this, right? And if someone is under a negative influence, let's say, for example, somebody is tired and sick and they haven't slept properly and they're a bit grouchy and a little bit irritated, right? We wouldn't want to, like, give them a really hard time and, like, sleep deprive them and deny them of food and stuff like that. We'd want to say, have a rest, you'll probably feel better when you've had a nice nap, and here's something to eat. And then that's lifting them up, right? It's just in a practical way. So when we take sorrow from people, we often think, well, we should attack them back. That's what the ego thinks, right? Someone did this to me, so I should go and get them back. That's like the natural response from the animal ego consciousness. But the spiritual response is they're under an external influence. They don't mean it.
And they don't know how else to live. They don't know how else to
That's
be.
True. They haven't got another option.
They are experiencing so much sorrow. They're already experiencing so much sorrow. They don't need help from me to experience more. And that's why they're giving that, because they are already experiencing so much sorrow.
Yeah. It's whatever's inside is coming out. So they need our good wishes and pure feelings. This is advanced stuff, by the way. Let's just be very clear about this. Not taking sorrow and giving everyone good wishes and pure feelings is a bit of a practice. But we have to start somewhere. And the more we have a general attitude of good wishes, pure feelings, blessings, that puts us in a higher state. It protects us from negative feelings. It stops us taking the sorrow when it comes to us, because we're in a higher space. And it also can help the other person to stop doing it. Because if they feel uplifted and blessed, they're more likely to change. But if they don't, then that's all right as well, because we're not expecting it. So these are very deep things. We're scratching the surface here, but these are also very deep things to think about in your own way.
Ultimately, Michael, life is fun.
Fun and games.
It is fun. If we taste sorrow, then the fun goes out. What's the point? We have to live anyway.
Yeah.
Why not live in fun?
It's easier to not take sorrow when we have a sense of humour. It really is, because if we can see it as quite comical, like with this one, this review I was talking about, it just came to mind because it's a classic example. I did end up thinking this is actually quite funny, because it's so fraudulent, like in the sense like it's not based on reality, so it's kind of funny, like, and it's like funny that I got upset about it. But these sorts of things come up again and again and again. So it's endless opportunity for amusement or for sorrow. That's why in these spiritual teachings it's often mentioned that this is a Mickey Mouse cartoon, right? But this is a high level practice, to see everything as a cartoon, because then it does start to seem, if you can see it smaller and see it like a cartoon, and you're okay over here watching the cartoon, it does feel more light, doesn't it?
I was talking to someone recently about this, right? That it is a game, it's a cartoon game. And they said, oh, how can you say that? World War II, the person is Jewish. So many things happened to Jewish people, they were killed. I can't see all of that as cartoon. Or even the civil rights movement, right? You can't see all of those things as cartoon because people really got hurt. And I was saying, maybe 70, 80 years ago, the paradigm was different. At that time, you couldn't say, oh, it's a game, right? Everyone dealt with it the best way they could. But we've moved on. We are not in 1940s or 1930s. Or even the civil rights movement, we are not in the 1960s. We are in 2020s. And so in 2020s, those old paradigms are not necessary, because that's another reason why we keep taking sorrow. We are stuck in old paradigms. The paradigm is moved on. now is a paradigm where you realize how valuable you are, how divine you are, learn to put a full stop, give good wishes and pure feelings, and learn not to take sorrow because it's a choice now. At that time, people didn't have a choice. You have a choice now. You have a choice to walk away from a situation.
That's right. I mean, the question is whether or not seeing it in that way helps you feel better about it and maybe make a bigger difference, isn't it? So a lot of these spiritual things, they're changes in our attitude and our perception, aren't they? So it's an inner game. So we can decide however we want to see anything, really. We could say, oh, everything is... Like some people, they seem to get extremely upset about anything at all, pretty much. You know, we all know the person who's like, everything is a like major crisis. You know, like, oh, they ran out of my favorite yogurt. Oh my God, it's so unfair. And other people, they just don't really care about anything. It seems to be okay about it. So these situations, like the Holocaust, that's a major thing. Of course, I'm sure if I was there and anyone listening, we were here in that situation, we wouldn't find it easy to manage. But even if we were in that situation, we'd want to think it's a game and make it as small as possible in order to handle it better, don't you think? So these are things that would allow us to deal with a very, very dark situation with a certain perspective that would be very emotionally and spiritually liberating. So are we addicted to sorrow unnecessarily now? And if we are, we can give it up if we want. Blessings
for our amazing viewers.
While the drama.
Thank you for being with us.
And I hope you don't take sorrow.
Okay, you want to pick a number?
Let's
pick a number, either 5 or 10 number, multiple by 5 or 10.
60.
60. Integrity. You've made your core values the centerpiece of all you do, living them out faithfully and gracefully. You have conviction in the power of patience and sacrifice because you know there is no greater currency than a clear conscience.
That's very interesting. Wonderful. So, wishing everyone freedom from sorrow. Congratulations. Would love to hear your thoughts about this episode. If you've managed to get all the way to the end, oh my goodness. Tell us how you can use this to not take sorrow in your own life. We always love hearing stories. So if you have a story of usually taking sorrow and then not taking sorrow, let us know. We'd love to hear in the comments. Have fun, lots of love, many, many blessings.
Om Shanti.